Hey guys, JB here, the Wolf of Wall Street in the Wolf's Den. Got another awesome podcast episode today. Got a man named Justin Kenna, CEO of GameSquare, which is an esports company. If you don't know what esports is, let me give you this. It's the analogy. It's not about sports, actually. It's not like esports is people who are playing like video games of sports, like soccer and stuff like that. They could be, but it's not really about that. It's more about like single shooter games like Fortnite and Call of Duty and those sort of things. So there's actually, imagine there's millions of people around the world who are playing those games. Then there's the very best, the professional level of those players. Those people are in a league which is basically called esports, and it's an incredibly high-paid bunch of people. It's shocking when you actually unpack what's going on in this industry, why it's happening, and is it a good thing? Is it good that kids are spending so much time playing video games, better yet, watching other people play video games on places like Twitch, or when they even go to these stadiums in post or pre-pandemic days and watching gamers out there? It's a unique world, to say the least. It's one that you need to know about. Whether or not you're a gamer, it doesn't matter. You want to know about this world because it's a future that's not going away. So let's take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and then we'll come back and we'll hear about the world of esports and GameSquare, which, by the way, is a company I am personally involved with. I believe in it. So let's make that note too. If you're a business owner, you don't need them to tell you that running a business is a tough thing to do, right? But you might be making it a lot harder on yourself than you have to be. Don't let QuickBooks and spreadsheets slow you down anymore. It's time to upgrade to NetSuite. Time to stop paying for multiple systems that don't give you even close to the amount of information you truly need to run your business the right way. Ditch the spreadsheets, all that old software you've outgrown. Now is the time to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle, the world's #1 cloud business system. NetSuite gives you the visibility, the control over your financials that you need, your HR, your inventory, e-commerce, and more. Everything all in one spot, instantaneously. Whether you're doing $1 million or hundreds of millions in revenue a year, you can save a ton of time and a ton of money with NetSuite. You want to join over 24,000 companies who are using NetSuite right now. Let them show you how they'll benefit your business with a free product tour at netsuite.com/wolf. Schedule a free product tour now at netsuite.com/wolf. That's netsuite.com/wolf. If you want to grow your business, you want to diversify your content, this is a product that I 1,000% believe in and use myself every day. And it's been a game changer for me, making more money for me than any other app I've used that's even close to this. It's called Melon. And Melon is a web-based live streaming studio that makes streaming easy and lucrative. It is literally the best out there by a country mile. And I'm looking you in the eye. I'm telling you, that's a fact. Go to live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube in just 5 clicks. All of them at once. You're not going to find a better tool out there than Melon for your live streaming needs. Impossible. Better streaming in HD, recording functionality, real-time audience interaction. You get everything with Melon. So start streaming with Melon today. Go to melonapp.com/wolf. That's Melon, MELON-APP, melonapp.com/wolf. Sign up for a free account. Because of me, it's free, by the way. You get a high-performance professional live streaming tool for free. It's blazing fast. The response time is like that. Low CPU usage. It's all available right in your browser. Go to melonapp.com/wolf and start streaming today. This is a no-brainer. If you don't try this, honestly, then you must not like making money online. All right, Justin, thanks for coming on the show here.
Thanks for having me.
I want to talk about esports. It's baffling to me, but I'm actually involved in it now through your company, GameSquare, which is actually a public company, right? You traded the Toronto?
Yeah, CSA, Canadian Stock Exchange.
What's the symbol, by the way?
JSQ.
All right, everyone knows the symbol now, GSQ. I have some options because I'm working with the company right now. I'm a believer in the space. In fact, I'm more than a believer. It's shocking to me that esports is as much of a behemoth as it is right now. Explain to everyone here who doesn't know, what exactly is esports?
For sure. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think I think people understand that the gaming industry is really booming, and there's obviously different facets of that.
Video game industry.
Right. So within that, esports is the professional part of gaming. So esports specifically is, if you think about basketball, there's lots of different competitions and people play basketball, street basketball, but the NBA is the pro, league within the US. Esports is the pro part of video gaming.
So for example, if there are actually video games where people are playing basketball, right? And you have people playing those video games where people are playing basketball. So for those people who are at the highest level of playing that game, those people are engaged in esports.
For sure. So it's more so your sort of casual gaming crossover into traditional sports. So I think it's an interesting one, and we talked about it before in relation to esports. A lot of people think about, it's gaming for sports games, and there are sports games, i.e. FIFA, which is soccer, and Madden, which is NFL, that do cross over. But real esports, your bigger esports, are really your first-person shooter games, and some of the games I think that you would really resonate in terms of your bigger esports are Fortnite, Call of Duty, Counter-Strike.
So in other words, the word sports is not being used in the traditional way where like people are playing sports like basketball, baseball, football, soccer, football, and your football, right? It's more about just that it's video game itself is a sport, and esports is the league at the highest level of playing video games, right?
For sure. It's the pro part of it. And
Got it.
As sort of the industry's evolved, I think Fortnite was really the game that kind of crossed over into more content creation. So, with the emergence of Twitch, which, for any listeners that don't know, Twitch is really sort of the YouTube of gaming, and where kids go on to consume and watch other kids play video games. With the growth of Twitch, it's really changed esports. Esports was really looked at as, a team-based sort of within different games where, you would travel to play for prize money.
Sure.
And your sort of financial model, I guess, of your esports was quite similar to traditional sports, whereas the emergence of Fortnite and Twitch is really interesting because now you have a lot of these casual gamers and as you were sort of alluding to before, athletes, celebrities, these sports stars who have become real casual gamers and are actually starting to monetize this industry through gaming on Twitch.
So for all you parents who used to be really upset, you're spending so much time playing video games. Now they are actually spending time watching people play video games. This is the next level of being angry at your kid for not doing something constructive. Why don't you at least play a video game instead of watching people play video games? It's going to the next level here, right?
100%. And it's interesting because that's a question I get a lot is why would kids watch other kids play video games? And the answer is actually, it makes a lot of sense, right? Why would someone go to Wimbledon and watch tennis? It's because they play tennis and they're watching someone elite do what they want to do. And I think this is even more powerful and where this industry is growing is the ability to then be able to cross-sell into brands, because not only do you have this huge audience, but they're really engaged, right? Like I think I used this example with you before. If you go to a Laker game, less than 5% of that crowd's playing basketball, maybe less than 1%. Right, actively, or maybe less than 10% ever have played basketball. Whereas these kids that are watching and consuming this content, they're gamers, they're engaged.
Yeah, and that makes sense too, because I remember the most engaged I ever was with watching tennis, which was when I was actually in Melbourne, where you're from, right?
Yep.
And I watched the Australian Open, and every day I went there and I'd stay all day, and at nighttime is because at the time I was actively playing tennis every single day. So when you're that much into something in your own life doing it, you want to see, well, who's doing it at the highest level, right? And that's really what esports, what drives the engagement. Is that correct?
For sure, definitely. And it's pretty remarkable when you watch some of these kids play. I mean, to understand, their skills and I mean, there's more kids playing Fortnite than playing any sport in the world. So the competition, as you can imagine, to be elite is so high, and these kids are incredible.
So let's look at this very directly in terms of, firstly, the industry itself, and then your business within the industry. So number one, why would someone want to invest their money in this industry, meaning as a business, financially, right? GameSquare is one of the companies that's in this esports space. Are there others?
For sure, there's so many. I mean, the Forbes list that came out this year, I think the valuations are just skyrocketing, right? And the money being invested in this space is skyrocketing.
Who are the biggest players in the space?
Yeah, so from a team org base, so there's different players in the space, right? So we're sort of talking more and basing more around esports and team orgs and content creation of esports. So we're not talking about the publishers, so the people making the games and making the tournaments. So if you look at it from an org-based structure, some of your biggest orgs, so Enthusiast Gaming, which is actually also listed on the Canadian Stock Exchange, they're one of your bigger players in terms of publicly listed companies. Most of your other bigger players in this space are still private companies. Faze Clan, where I came from, is by far, I'd say, the biggest brand in this space. I mean, their eyeballs in terms of, I think collectively it's probably more now, but over 260 million followers across all platforms. They have enormous reach, and they've really sort of paved the way in terms of this intersection of pop culture, this crossover into traditional sport and media. And I think they were number 3 on the Forbes most valued list at a tick over 300 million. And this was sort of 6 months ago, so I'm sure that's continuing to skyrocket. So, I mean, in terms of why would you invest in this sort of industry in general, I think it really comes back to what we were talking about before. It's capturing end audience, and it's a really fragmented audience. So for brands, they're harder to reach than traditionally being a McDonald's and with the marketing spend that they have, and going to a traditional agency and saying, go and create strategy and campaign for us to reach end audience. Marketing around gaming is very different, and the ability to reach that end audience is much harder. So I think in terms of competition and being really well placed from a competitive advantage standpoint, the authenticity in the space is really resonating and showing through in terms of traditional agencies working with gaming specific agencies to reach end audience. And so you'll see that more and more.
Who would be the equivalent outside of esports, like another industry that would sort of say it's a model of where this industry is going?
It's funny because it's a little bit of a combination, right? So when I was at Faze Clan, we were asked, who were our big competitors, and it was interesting because, and as I was saying, Faze have really paved the way in terms of opening up large commercial deals. The competitors at Faze were, yes, sort of other esports orgs that you competed with in the games, but really they were competing with CAA and WME from a talent perspective. They were competing with the LA Lakers and Man
creative
City.
artist William Morris, meaning
correct.
Right.
And then also you're competing with Supreme and Champion and these sort of real pop culture merch brands that so there's a real sort of crossover. And I think what this is really is gaming is the new form of entertainment.
Right.
And so in terms of direct competition, there's sort of market share all around that gaming's taking over, right? In terms of revenue in the space, the gaming industry is now bigger than music and movie industries combined. So this is real and it's growing.
Do you think there's something, I don't want to say wrong about it, but do you think there's something that's not good for the growth of kids between the age of 14 to 20 that they're locked away? Because it's a solitary thing, gaming, and it's not a social thing in the sense that you're not interacting directly with others? Or is it really more of just, it's another symptom of the whole internet, social media? Everything's becoming less interactive. Is this another example of that? Or you think or is it worse in some way? Or just another example?
I think it's a really valid question, and it's something that I think about because I grew up traditional sports. I didn't
Right,
grow
you played professional sports, right?
I didn't grow up as a gamer, but it's a really good question you ask. And I think, again, I kind of go back to my time at FaZe Clan, because I think FaZe Clan's been kind of one of the brands that have done this really well, and that is promoting a healthy lifestyle where you have kids from all walks of life that are, pro athletes, they're casual athletes, they are models, musicians, they have all sorts of skills, and it's not that you're locked in a basement playing video games 12 hours a day. And I think the reason that they became so kind of cool from a brand standpoint is they had these 4 kids that they made great content, but they came out and they were the first kids to say, you know what, we're gamers and gaming's cool.
Right.
And a lot of kids who game sat there and went, oh, it's actually okay that I'm a gamer. I'm allowed to be. And
it's like Tony Hawk was cool as a skateboarder out there interacting, and that seemed like it was where the parents hated it, didn't or loved it. It's fresh air. It's fun. You mentioned things to me before off this camera before we started that it's important that like these kids have dietitians, they have like masseuses, and they have like they have this whole regimen of eating, working out, and maintaining focus, right?
For sure. So that's definitely at the esports level. Your pro gamers that are, so I'll kind of go back a step just to make it clear is within esports, you have guys that are pro gamers and they're signed to teams. Within that, they'll be getting paid a fixed salary. They'll get a percentage of prize money. That's your pro gamer esports part. Then you have more of your sort of casual gamer content creators, and this is the part of the industry that's really growing more and more with the growth of Twitch and other platforms. And within the content creation sort of standpoint, there's sort of 2 parts to this. So yes, absolutely, in terms of keeping focus and keeping healthy and fit for these guys that are pro gamers is super important. For the casual gamers that are monetizing, themselves through content creation, it's funny your point before around, being social, because I actually think the emergence of this industry is because kids are socializing through the internet more and more these days anyway. Gaming has evolved so much that it's not just about how good you are at gaming, it's about your personality and what you have to offer. And kids are actually socializing and communicating all over the world. It's actually pretty crazy. It's not to say, sit in your basement all day and just talk to kids playing video games all over the world, but it has become much more social. I think there should be a balance for sure, but I think kids are going to play video games anyway. I think if you can do that in a healthy way and be able to teach some skills around that, and I think the industry's evolving in a way that's happening.
Are there things that are purposely built into these games to make the kids want to continue to play them?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think it's the same with anything, right? Whether it's music or movies or anything, that we talk about pop culture, and again, I think gaming is the new form of entertainment.
No, I'm talking about from a perspective the games designed on purpose to create addiction to play them more.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't talk too greatly to the publishers and how they're creating video games. I'd say there's probably something in there, right? Because kids don't want to put their controller down, but I think that also probably comes back to a competitive nature as well, right? When you get good at something and you're competing against others, you kind of keep going to get better and don't want to stop. Gaming is obviously one that you have the ability to do so for longer because of the your lack of physical exertion or whatever else.
I think maybe I didn't say that exactly how I wanted to. Addiction is not necessarily unhealthy or it's going to hurt you. What I'm saying is there are certain qualities that we do when we try to gamify things. In my industry, we say, let's gamify it. That means do things to make people want to keep playing and engage. And the word addiction, I guess, means, are there people sitting in a room designing these games, and they're like, it's like sort of a playbook there. Okay, we know that we have to have X number of jewels they chase or lives they get, and we're going to monetize it. It's probably at that level, isn't it?
For sure. Absolutely.
And do you think that there is something wrong with that or no?
No, I don't. In general, I think that's going to come across in all walks and forms of life. So I don't. But again, kind of going back to your question before, I think that comes down to the focus within the industry for us, to build a brand within the industry, we want to do that in a way that's healthy. It's not promoting kids playing games non-stop for 20 hours, right? It's about a balance, and it's about promoting other aspects and walks of life rather than...
But do you think it's better? I think it's better. Like, I mean, the more I think about it, I'd rather my kids be engaged in watching gamers and the positivity of competition than the hate and the nonsense and all the the worry about likes and the terrible shit that goes on in regular social media. Like, I think that in some level, gaming might be a healthier place for these kids to be, because
sure.
like like Facebook and Instagram, like, it's really the haters are just like unbelievably toxic to these kids, and they make kids depressed. And I'm wondering if gaming is almost maybe a more positive social outlet for them, because at least there's competition involved, and that, I think, usually brings out the best in people, not the worst. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's definitely valid points to that. I'd say if you spend enough time on Twitch, you'll probably see there's a bit of that within the gaming world as well. I will say that I think across a multitude of platforms and orgs in the space, there's a lot of work being done around anti-bullying, around hate speech, or any type of speech or bullying or
right.
putting down. And I think that's something that we're seeing more and more in the industry, which I think is great. Being able to control what kids say
sure.
and do on the internet is a pretty tough.
No, I know. I mean, like I always say, like, I don't know how easy it would be for me to be a kid again. Like in today's world, right? We grew up, it was
sure.
different. First of all, most of the bullies now are cowards because they're able to bully on the internet. So they're real cowards.
Keyboard warriors.
I think all bullies are mostly cowards at heart, but really, like, the ability to bully behind a phony screen name and not know and make others feel terrible is obviously a bad thing. And I would just think that I'm sure it exists in gaming. My guess would be, though, typically, like, most things virtually mimic the real world. And, like, the best thing for kids is, I'd rather have my kids playing a sport or competing
for sure.
than just sitting around like pot shots at each other, right? So I think
100%.
Yeah, it's probably a healthier outlet for most kids.
Definitely. No, I agree. I mean, and again, going back to your question before, I think it's a real question. It's an interesting one because I think it's something that a lot of parents kind of struggle with in terms of, I actually met a journalist in New York at the Fortnite World Cup, and she was sitting behind the FaZe Clan guys, and she was asking me, like, what's all this fuss about? Like, I don't really get this space. I brought my son here, and I actually, like, debated with myself whether I bring him to the Fortnite World Cup or not, because I don't love how much time he spends playing video games. But what she said was, when he puts on his headset, he grows confidence. He's a little kid, and he goes in the gym at school and he gets picked on. It is healthier than is perceived, and I think a lot of the orgs are very cognizant of that and promoting gaming in a healthy way and capacity. And it's a bit of a level playing field for girls and guys, and it doesn't matter how old you are or your ethnicity.
Well, this is really another really interesting point I want to dig into. Firstly, before we move on, I have one really important, profound thing I want to talk to you about. Before I do, though, I think, to sum it up, anything is unhealthy in an extreme, right? Moderation's the key. Too much of anything is probably a bad thing, right? Sure. So I guess there's a certain level of gaming that just is probably healthy and positive, and it gets out of control unless they're doing it for an outcome where they're trying to really be a professional, then it's probably a different story, right?
For sure.
More importantly, though, the profound thing I'm thinking of is that in some level, gaming is the ultimate leveler of the playing field, because it doesn't matter how tall you are, how short you are, how strong you are. Like, you were a natural athlete. You played professional ball. You obviously were born with certain gifts to be an athlete. Knowing AFL, you played Australian football, right? Australian rules, right?
I grew up playing Australian football. I wasn't quite that good, but
no, the point is,
I'll take the athlete comment, though.
Listen, the point is that not anybody, I don't care who you are, if you're not born with a certain set of qualities, you're not playing pro football, baseball, soccer. I think that the gaming world eliminates all of those genetic advantages that some people have, just being bigger, stronger, faster, male, female, and it like levels the playing field for like someone that wants to just, it's about isn't it more about the brain and dexterity and talent and just simply sheer perseverance?
Yep, 100%. It's funny you say that, because my sister used to beat me at Mario Kart when I was a kid, and I stopped playing video games. and she wouldn't play tennis or football or anything like that against me. I mean, you're so right. It levels the playing field
for all kids, like boys that like some boys are late bloomers. Doesn't matter anymore.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. And I think that, again, going back to the Faze example, these kids coming out and saying we're gamers and it's cool.
Yeah, it's
kind of been this evolution of people saying, you know what, like I'm proud to be a gamer. And now really it's, again, with every young celebrity, young NFL players, NBA players, that they're all gaming, they're all integrated into this world.
How much of this is natural talent and how much of this is just sheer hard work, perseverance in these top elite gamers?
Oh, in the elite gamers, I mean, it's both. These guys grind. Like, I mean, they train. I spent a few weeks with our Counter-Strike team when I was at FaZe Clan. And
Counter-Strike is what? Where they group together, it's military style combat, like a team of Navy SEALs virtually?
Yeah, first-person shooter game. And I mean, these guys, they're so locked in. They all know what their roles are within this game. They have different strategy meetings. They're training. So they're gifted for sure, because, I mean, if you watch these guys and their reaction time, it's incredible. Their hand-eye coordination, their focus, they are really elite. They're incredible. But they train, like they work hard.
Is it gifted like bigger or stronger? No, is it just your dexterity?
It's so funny because, I mean, if you looked at a gaming org, you might have some ripped guy who's got tats and he looks like, he could be a military, really a SEAL team. 100%. And then you have all sorts of walks of life. And I think, as you were saying before, that's the cool thing about it, right? It doesn't matter about your background, doesn't matter about your gender, doesn't matter. It's an even playing field. And
it's an incredible thing. And tell me why, when I had a meeting with you before this with my son and was saying, great, you to get involved in the gaming world, it's a natural evolution for me. Obviously, my brand is perfectly matched for this, right?
Yep.
So I said, let me ask you a question to both you and my son. I'm like, if I start to really play games, can I get good enough to compete? You're like, both, no. I said, no. You said, there's no way. You both gave me this hard no, like you'll never be good enough. Well, is it like what? I missed the window here, or there's so many hours they're putting? Like what is it that, like you said, like it was such a hard no, like you'll never, honestly, you're too fucking old. Sorry, it ain't happening, buddy. Sorry, you missed the boat in that. What is it? Is it a young man's game? Are there older gamers too?
No, there are for sure. I mean, it wasn't a personal attack. I mean,
I didn't think it's pretty funny.
It was more from personal.
For both, you said it simultaneously. No, like
it was more from personal experience, trying for me to learn these games. No, there are games that, for sure, that you can get better at quicker, and I think they probably are your more traditional sports games, right?
Games are.
Yeah, like FIFA, NBA 2K, Madden, and they're a lot of fun and they're great games. And those games do resonate in esports to a degree. But again, as we talked about before, your pro gamer, your esports types game tend to be more of your first-person shooter games. And they're the games that I think you could get good at if you played them a lot. But to get to an elite level, I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Is it because I'm too old and my reaction times have slowed, or they're playing so many hours behind that? You said there's no way you'd be willing to spend that many hours.
Both, for sure.
Or reaction times.
So, no, I mean, you see, like, within esports, and we'll see this more, right, as the industry evolves and gets, more years within pro gaming. But, you don't see many pro gamers over the age of 30. You don't really see many over the age of 25. And I think that comes down to exactly that reaction time. The average age of the Fortnite World Cup, there was 100 kids who qualified. The average age of the kid who qualified was 16.7 years old. The kid who won $3 million was 17 years old.
Well, let me ask you another question. Can you see a point in time where the industry and this whole esports phenomenon has evolved to the point where there are age categories, over 30, under 20, over 50, like where you actually see people or
absolutely, I don't see why not. That you see that in all sports, right?
That's what I'm saying. Why wouldn't it happen?
100%. I mean, that's just something I think the really cool thing here is esports has been around for a while. Video games have obviously been around for a long time, but really the convergence of the two in terms of the digital world that we now live in, and brands now needing these eyeballs, and all of this, it's such early days. The upside is is so big. But I mean, absolutely.
So to me, it would seem like a natural evolution. If Twitch is out there for these kids, would there be room for a platform that focused on older gamers and a league that, in other words, I would think that if kids would watch other kids game and adults would watch other adults game too, that the same things would apply. That would drive me to watch golf or tennis would be the same thing that if I got into video games, that I'd watch older people play games.
People, I think generally, in a lot of brands, when you deal with brands who want to enter this space, think, oh, okay, so it's sort of 20 years and younger. This is my gaming audience, and it's not the case, right? You're looking at your sort of 35 and younger, and that's because, you know, when I was a kid, I think I just missed it. Like, you know, some of my friends played video games, but it wasn't. I just missed the boat because, you know, kids sort of 4 or 5 years younger than me. That was sort of the birth of it, and it's getting older, right? Because these guys are still gaming. The demographic from sort of 25 to 35, high disposable income, really where the brands are trying to capture, that's the audience that's still engaged in video games. So I think what you're saying
I think we should have an over 35. I think we should form a league of our own. Over 35. We should form our own platform to do the videos. Instead of Twitch, it'll be like, it won't be Twitch. It'll be like barely moving. Like you can't actually Twitch. It's like slow. Not Twitch. It's like we used to Twitch. It's called. We used to Twitch.com. It's our platform.
I like it.
And we make it over 35. You got to be on there playing, and you got to have your license and prove that you're the right age. And we set up leagues and competitions. They
wheel you in
a wheelchair. Right?
I like it. I mean,
it actually would work.
Twitch is evolving. I mean, you know, we were sort of talking about it before from just being, you know, this younger person platform where, you know, people, it's a live streaming platform where, you know, as we were sort of talking about before, where, you know, there's now podcasts and all sorts of different, you know, sort of content on there. So, I mean, I think you could pitch this to them for sure.
Good idea, right? I have a lot of good ideas. Let's talk now specifically about GameSquare.
Yep.
All right. What's the business strategy of GameSquare, and why did you form the company in the way that you did with different divisions and so forth?
GameSquare is, you know, our sort of ethos is to connect global brands to the end consumer. And as we've kind of talked about, this end consumer being esports and gaming communities, and that audience is enormous and it's continuing to grow. You know, during my sort of time at Faze Clan, and, you know, Faze Clan, as we've sort of talked about, is the biggest sort of brand within this space. My time at Faze Clan, what I think my biggest learnings were really like where and how to monetize this space. I think there's a lot of money, you know, being invested into gaming. There's a lot of revenue in gaming, but a lot of people are still working out, okay, how do we actually make money? How do we monetize it appropriately? How do we get to profitability? So we talked about before, you know, and again, I know it's early days, but of that top 10 Forbes list, I'm not sure if any of those entities are actually profitable. I mean, they're all on the trajectory to being so, and there's so meaningful revenue in there, but they're not necessarily profitable. So the premise of this org and what we're trying to build is we're trying to build the first publicly listed company of real revenue scale that's profitable. And the way that we think that we can do that is we want to build the biggest media digital marketing agency within this space. So concentrating on the areas that you can really monetize, that there's real margin. And for us, the way that we see that is we see the margin being connecting brands to the end consumer. So we're doing so, you know, through we have 4 portfolio assets. Our sort of main core assets are an influencer agency in the UK, and then we have the more creative sort of ad agency specific to gaming here in LA. And at the moment, we're sort of continuing to build that out.
Where do you see to be the big driver of growth for GameSquare? Like, why would someone want to buy the stock right now? And again, guys, I have some shares. I'm not selling them anytime soon, so don't worry. They're long-term investment, and it's not that big. But just why would someone want to buy the stock now?
It's pretty early days for us, right? So we actually we RTO'd in October of last year.
That means the reverse merger, right? You merged into a shell?
Yeah, so we as we talked about before, we're now listed on the CSE. But it's very early days for us. So I think, you know, for someone wanting to look to get in,
it's a long-term play.
For sure, it really is. And I mean, for us, what we're really doing is, and probably from what I was saying before, sounds like more of an M&A play, and it's both. It's not just an M&A play. I mean, the assets that we have in our portfolio at the moment, we're so bullish on their growth and getting them capitalized. We're really confident in the revenue growth from our existing assets, but we are looking at complementary M&A to bring into our group. We really feel that, one, we have the management team to really drive and grow this business, but with really sort of industry specific knowledge on how and where to monetize. But secondly is to bring in really smart private companies. And there are a lot of private companies, agency type businesses that are dealing with brands, connecting to end audience in this space that are kind of at that growth stage of, we need access to capital. How do we ever get access to liquidity? So, we think that we're really well placed from a management perspective, from an organic perspective, and now from an M&A perspective to bring in the right orgs into our group to build out the biggest media agency business in this space. And one other thing that I'll add to that is, because the market is so fragmented, there will be opportunities obviously for roll up into certain entities, but you don't necessarily need to either, right? Like there's a lot of opportunity to reach end audience. We could own 2 or 3 agencies in the same market, same geography, location. The market is very fragmented in terms of audience reach, specific games, where brands want to play, etc. The industry is huge and it's growing. So I think it's a great time to get involved.
Cool. And that's on the Toronto. You're on the Toronto?
CSE, Canadian Stock Exchange.
Canadian Stock Exchange.
Yeah, but I mean, look, there'll be opportunities for an uplisting in the future. We're discussing, it's early days. It's too early right now, but we're really building our presence in the US and we'll be doing so. I mean, looking to list on the NASDAQ at some point once we really build out the rev profile and build out the model. But
cool. All right. Well, everyone, Justin Kenna from GameSquare. Check out the company. And just as importantly, more importantly, check out gaming. I think it's something that's just exploding right now, and it's here to stay. And if you haven't tried it, try it. It's a lot of fun. I've played some of these games. They're addictive for sure. They are difficult to master, but again, they're supposed to be. But they're enjoyable. You'll be a better person for it. So share this video, this podcast with your friends, and I will see you next week on The Wolf's Den. Take care.